This is video 20, using a graphics API to display widgets on an ILI9341 LCD color display with a Raspberry Pi Pico. The code for this video is at the GitHub site. These videos on MicroPython should work as well on any MicroPython board. All code examples have definitions at the beginning of the file to allow the user to alter as needed. As this channel covers multiple small system solutions over time, please subscribe to stay informed and click like, as that really helps. In this video, we locate a suitable graphics API and wire an ILI9341 LCD display to a Raspberry Pi Pico. For this effort, I'm using the Pico MP display baseboard, but any board supporting a Pico and its pins will work. The board is running on MicroPython version 1.20. Let's jump forward in time and watch the demo. We open the aclock.py file in Thony and start the program. The program is utilizing four colors: black, green, yellow, and red. A benefit of using Thony is that it stores the current date time on our Pico, so when we run the program, it displays a clock with the current date time. Now that we know that the display works, let's look at the steps. We begin our research by utilizing a resource list of MicroPython libraries from Mike Koelzer. We want to skip past simple SSD 1306 drivers and go look at the topic GUI, where we find micropython-nano-gui. This graphics library was developed by Peter Hinch. Peter's library has drivers for 30-plus LCD displays that support a common primitive graphics API, a writer class with fonts for text, and some widgets. The small displays use I2C or SPI with optional control I/O to communicate with hardware that utilize the MicroPython framebuffer module. We will use the ILI9341 LCD display because it provides a multicolored display for under $15. In future videos, Peter's library becomes a starting point that can lead to larger displays with complex libraries. I downloaded the library as a zip file and extracted the files. So here's the extracted library, and when we look at the files, we'll see several directories. In one of the directories is which is called Setup Examples. You'll see a list of all the various different driver support files. So we're going to be interested in this one right here. This file describes the pin definitions for the ILI9341 driver file. Peter's mapping gives both the generic pin name and physical position. I found the names confusing at first, then I realized that, for example, IO6 was just the same as GP6. For now, we do not need the touch or SD card features, so looking at the back of the ILI9341 display, we see that we need 6 digital I/O pins and 3 power pins. This diagram shows my wire connections. Here is a picture showing the connections. To get the demo working on your desktop, go to my GitHub site and download a zip of the video 20 files. The Pico files are all placed on the Pico flash directory, and I run the program aclock in the Thony. If we go back to the extracted files, you'll see that there's a lot of directories, as we mentioned earlier. So from the setup examples, as I mentioned earlier, we only need one of these files. And this file, as you see here, contains the definitions of the pins and the driver for the SSD. So that's the very first file that we need to put on our Pico. The next file we need is to locate the ILI9341 directory. and that's this one. It's ILI93XX, and inside it is this file ILI9341.py. We're going to copy this file as well to the driver folder in our Pico. And finally, we need this boolpalette.py. It's used by his widgets to create graphics for monochrome displays, but it's an integral part of his program. So that's all you need to do is find the device that you're looking for and pull out of it the appropriate files, the appropriate driver files. In the GUI directory, you'll see that there's core, demos, fonts, and widgets. The demos is a directory full of the programs that you can use when you run when you connect to the API. In this case, here's aclock.py. So this particular program is the one that I'm using in my test. There's many other programs that can be used and tested, but in some cases, for example, like the Sharp test, they're specific to certain devices. So be mindful of that. Otherwise, you should be able to run any of these programs once you've set it up. Okay, what changes did I make? So let's close all this and take a look at that. So here are the files that I've copied into my set of folders that I'm going to download to the Pico. If we go look at them, you'll see that I made a couple subtle changes. First, I went out to this particular file and located the driver file. As you'll see, it originally had the subfolder. Well, since we've reduced the number of directories in the drivers file to none, to just the files that we need, I commented out this line and copied it, put it down here, and removed just that reference to the intermediate folder, since it's now much simpler. So that's the only change I did to this file. In this file, I made one change. So on my system, asyncio did not exist. It did exist on the Pico as asyncio. So I replaced the import with this line. As I mentioned earlier, the color setup program file is simply a reference to the driver file that we're using. So in this case, it's the ILI9341_Pico. So essentially, your program references color setup. Color setup references the driver and the Pico. So if we go to the aclock, you'll see that here it's using color setup. Okay. And the only other change I made was I added this line at the end of the imports for the colors black, green, red, and yellow. And that is because even though the colors should show up here based on this file, they do not. So I had trouble, perhaps I removed a reference that I shouldn't have, but for now, to solve that problem, all I did was go into my main program and I made a reference to that GUI core colors file right here, and I imported the specific colors that I needed. So I could have imported all the colors, but in this case I just imported the 4 that I needed. So the background is black, the clock is green, the second hand is red, and the minute and hour hands are yellow. And that's it. You should be able to duplicate and create and get your display working with your Pico. Well, in summary, we located a suitable MicroPython Graphics API library to use, and we wired it to an ILI9341 LCD display. We reorganized the API files slightly into a smaller set of files to copy to the Pico. We did this because there is limited storage on the Pico, and we just needed certain driver files anyway. Hopefully this information helps you, and good luck with your graphics. Look forward to future videos on graphics. Thank you.